So Brioni has launched a new flanker in their series of fragrances called Brioni Eau de Parfum. This one is called Brioni Eau de Parfum Essential, this one right here. And it features a very, very faint note of tomato leaves. I'm going to let you know all about Brioni Eau de Parfum Essential and compare it to the other 3 fragrances in the series. And also remind you that there is a 30% off discount code over at So-Avant-Garde where Brioni Eau de Parfum Essential is selling. And today's the last day where you can take advantage of that discount code. But either way, find out all about Brioni Eau de Parfum Essential and how it compares to the other 3 Brioni Eau de Parfum fragrances. Thanks so much for tuning in. This is Sebastian. Are you guys familiar with the House of Brioni and their fragrances? So they launched a fragrance in 2021 called Brioni Eau de Parfum. Also, at the end of that same year, they launched Brioni Eau de Parfum Intense. In 2022, they launched Brioni Eau de Parfum ECLAT. Now we have Brioni Eau de Parfum Essential. I believe what happened was Brioni Eau de Parfum was initially supposed to launch during the pandemic in 2020, but it got delayed. So that's why they launched 2 fragrances in 2021. But I'm a fan of this collection, a designer house that has 4 fragrances now. All of the fragrances are created by Michel Almairac, except for one he did with Karine Vinchon Spehner, and I'll get to it later. But first I'm going to talk to you all about Eau de Parfum Essential. But just to remind you, take advantage of that 30% off discount code. You can use it on this or any Brioni fragrances and most everything on the So-Avant-Garde website. Keep in mind, Mind Games is not on the discount. But 30% off ends today, so use that code before it expires. The rest of the year, there is a 20% off code you can use throughout the year. I've got the codes in the info box. So this is a Michel Almairac creation. It launched in 2023. It's the 4th fragrance in the series, and it features notes of bergamot, tomato leaves, cardamom, patchouli, tonka beans, sandalwood, amber, and frankincense. So I was very, very excited about this one, especially for the fact that it has tomato leaves. But unfortunately, the tomato leaves are pretty short-lived and also very, very faint. If you're familiar with the notes of tomato leaves, it pops up in fragrances like Eau de Campagne from the House of Sicily. You can really notice its bitter, green, herbal qualities. Here, it's there, but it's so light. When you first spray it, you notice it, and then it goes away. So it's very, very short-lived. But up top, when you first spray this, it's quite juicy and citrusy. The bergamot is pretty prominent in this fragrance. Really in your face bergamot, so you experience the kind of crisp, fresh juiciness of the bergamot along with the spiciness of the cardamom. But just like the tomato leaves, cardamom is there a little more than the tomato leaves, but also I feel like it disappears pretty fast as well when you're left with a very juicy start for a fragrance. In the heart notes, you're experiencing patchouli. This fragrance is a really big patchouli fragrance. Here, it starts reminding me of Louis Vuitton's Orage. That is a patchouli fragrance as well. And here, the combination with the juiciness of the bergamot and then also the overdose of patchouli in the heart along with the tonka bean. So it creates a bit of a powdery effect here. It starts reminding me of Orage, as I said. But there's a faint reminder all throughout the fragrance of a very popular fragrance called Aventus, because I feel like this fragrance is kind of in that style, that whole kind of chypre style with the patchouli, kind of oak moss, and then the fruitiness. There's a light fruitiness here, but we're getting not necessarily uber fruitiness because the bergamot is juicy fruity, but it's not like a pineapple note or something. But there's a faint reminder of a cross between Louis Vuitton's Orage and something in the ballpark of Aventus-esque fragrance, maybe even Nishane's Hachivat, with less fruitiness, more screechiness with the notes that are in here. When the fragrance is drying down, it does dry down to a bit of a creamy sandalwood and the frankincense note. So I guess it does create a bit of an ambery quality when it's drying down, but I feel like for me, the dominating notes in this fragrance are the patchouli and the bergamot. And I love patchouli, right? I really enjoy the note of patchouli, and I like the combination here and also the familiarity about it. Is it Aventus? Is it Orage from Louis Vuitton? I like the way it smells. I feel like this will be a great wear day in and day out. It's masculine, it's fresh, it's earthy, it's woody, a bit sparkling with the combination of the bergamot and the patchouli. It makes for a great wear. My only disappointment was I wanted more tomato leaves. When I see the bottle, it's the green bottle. I think they're referring to the patchouli leaves, not the tomato leaves, because both of them are green, obviously. And I wanted a little more of that tomato leaves, but I think it might have gone in a different direction, and it wouldn't have been what they have given us here. And even though I've smelled fragrances like this, I think this fragrance does smell great. It wears great on me. I like the patchouli and the bergamot combo with the light spices that come in, and that faint tomato leaves note, which I wanted more of. But I feel like this will be a crowd pleaser. Anyone that needs a alternative to Aventus or anything like Aventus or Orage are going to be satisfied. Does it smell like the original in the Eau de Parfum, the very first one? Absolutely not. For me, I think the fragrances have evolved. You have the initial one from 2021, and then the one that came right after, the Eau de Parfum Intense, and then after that, the ECLAT became completely different, and then now the Essential has become completely different as well. They're so different now, and I could see the evolution, because we started out with violet leaves for the first one, then we went to a juicy apple note, very fresh, with oud. They made it intense. Kind of a similar idea with the ozonic touches of the violet leaves in the first one, and then you've given us something juicy and fruity in the second one, whereas there's a familiarity of the previous one because ozonic notes can be juicy and wet and drippy. And then we've got something completely different with the ECLAT. I'm going to dig into each one separately, but with the ECLAT, I feel like they went into kind of an Ambroxan direction, with amplified notes of rose and patchouli in it. So if you're into the molecular fragrances, I think you will enjoy the ECLAT. It's also powdery. And then now, as I said, the Essential is so different, reminding me of Orage and Aventus-like fragrances. So I'm going to go backwards in time. I'm going to talk to you about the ECLAT next. It comes in this nice white bottle. And this one is quite musky. And as I said, it's kind of like something with an overdose of Ambroxan. It doesn't smell like Baccarat Rouge, I should say. To me, it smells more like Molecule 2, Not a Perfume, those kind of Ambroxan fragrances. But they have lots of musk in this and also lots of grapefruit. So there's a bitter zing about it as well. And then there's the Ambroxan. There's a bit of frankincense and, of course, patchouli. There's rose, there's pink pepper, and creamy sandalwood in combination. For me, it's a dry fragrance and also powdery and very, very musky. But along with all these qualities, the patchouli comes through quite a lot. And also the grapefruit with its bitter, zingy, juicy citrusiness. And then, of course, the rose. I really like this one. I think this could be something to wear fresh during the summertime, and something that's, of course, molecular, as I said, with the kind of Ambroxan-y kind of overdose in here. Ambroxan is pretty prominent in this as well, I should say, along with the patchouli and the rose and the grapefruit. And it makes for a very molecular wear, kind of musky, kind of sexy, the rose and the patchouli added there. I feel like it's definitely solid release. Nothing like the original Brioni Eau de Parfum, but those of you that like those molecular fragrances, I think should check this one out, especially if you like the idea of that grapefruit, the patchouli, and also the rose in here. The rose is prominent, but this is not a rose fragrance. To me, it smells like Ambroxan, more like the Molecule 2 Ambroxan or the Not a Perfume Ambroxan. It doesn't smell like Baccarat Rouge. And I love Ambroxan. And Ambroxan is supposed to be an alternative note to replace ambergris. Again, ambergris and Ambroxan do not smell alike to me. But this is a good fragrance. I really like it. If you're looking for that little something else in place of something like Not a Perfume, where it just smells like of nothing but Ambroxan, or Molecule 2, where it just smells nothing but Ambroxan, this has the grapefruit, the patchouli, and the rose touch, which could add a bit more depth to just wearing Ambroxan on its own. So I really like this one. It's definitely solid, a great designer scent. This is Eau de Parfum ECLAT from Brioni. That came out last year. And then we've got the Eau de Parfum Intense, which came right after the original Eau de Parfum in 2021. Both of these launched in 2021. And this particular fragrance is created along with Karine Vinchon Spehner. Michel Almairac is the perfumer for all the fragrances, but Karine Vinchon Spehner assisted with the creation of this one. This one features notes of oud, green apple, Ambroxan, saffron, patchouli, vanilla, bergamot, tangerine, and pink pepper. Yeah, to me, it does have the same idea of the first fragrance with the overdose of violet leaves, But here they've thrown in an intense oud note, but very designer. And then they've added that green apple. It's very juicy and drippy. I like that. They've given it some depth with the Ambroxan to add its own, muskiness and its ambery touches and woody, powdery, and lightly aquatic touches that come in with the Ambroxan. And they've thrown in some saffron in this as well, and it's got a bit of a leathery undertone. And the patchouli is here. I absolutely love patchouli, and when they add it into fragrances for men, it really makes them really great. And then there's some sweetness in here as well, some ambery touches when it's drying down. I feel like this is my favorite out of the bunch, but I feel like the whole collection is pretty solid, but the Eau de Parfum Intense definitely is my favorite, and it's a toss-up between the ECLAT and the original to be my next favorite. And I feel like the Essential is quite nice as well. I really like the overdose of patchouli in that one. But this is a really great designer fragrance. I forgot to mention, I feel like these designer fragrances are done well. They don't smell like other designer fragrances out there. I'm happy that they're making something different rather than smelling like every other mass-produced designer fragrances that are, overloaded out there with a lot of different fragrances. You go from one to the other, they smell alike. These do not. And within the collection, they also do not as well, which makes for a great wearing experience. So this is Brioni Eau de Parfum Intense. That is the second launch in this collection. And then finally, the original fragrance, it's the Brioni Eau de Parfum, which launched in 2021. And as I was saying earlier, I feel like this was supposed to launch in 2020, but because of that pandemic we went through, this launched in 2021 because the Eau de Parfum Intense came right after, and I was like, whoa, they just launched one. Why bother waiting for the first one to kind of die down a little bit? But either way, this was created by Michel Almairac. Again, all of them are. This features notes of ozonic notes, violet, cedar, musk, tonka, ambroxan, green apple, pink pepper. So the green apple is in here. There's definitely a juicy quality here and also powdery. And they're saying ozonic notes. I feel like it's violet leaves. Violet leaves creates an ozonic quality in fragrances. It could perhaps be cucumbers, who knows, but they do have the violet in addition to it. And it's interesting that Michel Almairac is using violet ozonic notes, violet leaves, and things like that in this original fragrance, where he is the one that created Fahrenheit way back in 1988, I believe, is when that first launched. So he's been around and he's been creating a lot of great fragrances, and I think, as I said, this collection is solid. But it's very juicy, it's very powdery, it's woody, and a bit musky as well. When it's drying down, then there's definitely spices and things like that throughout the fragrance. It's very classy. You've got to like the violet and violet leaves note in fragrances, and this one definitely brings it into the forefront. You're definitely experiencing violet with violet leaves, ozonic touches. Great fragrance, great collection. I think if you're into the idea of original men's fragrances, very modern, definitely check out the Brioni collection of fragrances. I think they're definitely superior next to other designer fragrances. And as I was saying, every designer fragrance starts smelling the same. These are definitely more original, more classy, maybe a bit more mature, but definitely really great job by Michel Almairac. So that's the first fragrance, Brioni Eau de Parfum. And that's all I have for you today. And as I said, don't forget to take advantage of that 30% off code with So-Avant-Garde. I have the discount code in the info box. Today's the last day for the 30% off, and then after that it's 20% off. Both codes are in the info box. But let me know your thoughts on these fragrances from Brioni, and also let me know your thoughts on Brioni Eau de Parfum Essential. Do you like the sound of it? Have you noticed have you noticed the tomato leaves in this? I'm not noticing it. Maybe you're not noticing it, or maybe you are noticing it. If you've sampled it, do let me know what your thoughts are on it. And do you get the connection of something like Aventus with Orage from Louis Vuitton? Do let me know. Put a comment down. Either way, guys, thanks so much for watching today's video. If you have any questions or comments, please do list below. Please like this video. Please share it. Follow me on Instagram and Facebook, and I'll be back with more videos very soon. Have a good one. Goodbye.